These are the mountains where worlds meet. Forest above and desert below. From the desert floor, southern Arizona looks arid and extreme. The land feels exposed and dry. But from the summit, the desert falls away into the distance. These are not one continuous chain of mountains. They're separate ranges, divided by vast valleys. It's an archipelago of isolated peaks, rising out of an ocean of sand and rock. They're called Sky Islands. These are dozens of distinct mountain ranges stretching from Arizona into Mexico, forming one of the most biologically diverse regions in North America. But what makes these mountains possible? The story begins with geology. Millions of years ago, this part of the continent began to stretch. The crust pulled apart, cracked along faults, and broke into large chunks. This is the Basin and Range province. Some chunks dropped down, forming flat valleys. Others rose and tilted. These became the mountains. And because these peaks rose thousands of feet above the desert floor, they created their own conditions. The higher slopes are cooler. They hold more moisture and make these forests possible. At the base, desert. Then grassland, oak forest, and finally at the summit, pine tree forest. Near the end of the last ice age, the basins below were cooler and wetter. Oak, juniper, and pine trees stretched farther down the slopes than they do today. As the climate warmed, these forests retreated upwards, water becomes more scarce, creates an isolated refuge at the highest reaches. It wasn't just the plants that had to climb. Animals had to follow too. What's left today isn't one habitat, but many. Lower at the base, desert creatures call the land home. As you go higher, black bear, deer, quadrimundi, and even the North American jaguar. The word refuge sounds almost temporary, but for the animals and plants that live here, it isn't just an isolated refuge. This is the contrast of the Sky Islands. As conditions change, life can move upward only so far. At some point, there's nowhere left to climb. From the desert floor, it almost seems out of place. These are the mountains where forests shouldn't exist. And somehow, they do.